Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Fahmina Umar, Divisional Public School and Intermediate College, Lahore. Dear students, we are going to start our second chapter entitled as Homeostasis. Before coming to the contents of this chapter, it is necessary for me to make you familiar with the term homeostasis. My dear students of class 10, in my explanation, you may find some stuff outside from your textbook. But remember, when it's about attempting your paper, you cannot go out of your textbook. But when it's about grasping the concepts, you have to go out of your book. Let's start the topic. Homeostasis, the great balancing act, can be defined as maintenance of internal body conditions at equilibrium despite of changes in the external environment. Before explanation of this definition, let's recall our previous knowledge. You have studied in your previous classes that animals are of two types. Cold-blooded animals are those animals that change their body temperature with the change in temperature of the external environment. For example, amphibians and reptiles. Then, warm-blooded animals are those animals that keep their body temperature constant despite any change in the temperature of external environment. For example, mammals and birds. This picture will make you more clear. Look at this picture and carefully observe the thermometer. You can see whether it's winter or summer, body temperature of the bear remains 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Means bear is not changing its body temperature according to the change of temperature in the external environment. Contrary, in the lower part, you see a frog that drops its body temperature below 20 degrees Fahrenheit in winter, while when it's hot outside, it raises its body temperature above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can conclude that cold-blooded animals change their body temperature according to change in temperature of external environment, while warm-blooded animals keep their body temperature constant whatever the temperature of external environment is. It means warm-blooded animals have some mechanisms that regulate their body temperature and keep it constant despite of change in the temperature of external environment. All such mechanisms that work to keep the internal environment of an organism constant are termed as homeostasis. So, homeostasis refers to the body's ability to maintain a stable internal environment, that is, regulating its hormones, body temperature, water balance, etc. Maintaining homeostasis requires that body continuously monitors its internal conditions. For example, the core temperature of human body remains at about 37 degrees centigrade despite fluctuations in the surrounding air temperature. Similarly, blood glucose level remains about 1 gram per liter despite eating a meal rich in carbohydrates. These fixed values, that is, temperature would be 37 degrees centigrade and blood glucose level would remain constant at 1 gram per liter. These are called physiological set points. And your body cannot deviate from these set points. इसका मतलब हमारे जिस्म में खुदकार हयातियाती निज़ाम काम करता है जो हमारे जिस्म में मौजूद इन सेट पॉइंट्स को डिस्टर्ब नहीं होने देता। इसी खुदकार हयातियाती निज़ाम को होमियोस्टेसिस कहते हैं। मिसाल के तौर पर हमारे जिस्म का दर्जा हरारत 37 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड से तजावुज़ नहीं करता, चाहे बाहर माहौल का दर्जा हरारत 45 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड ही क्यों ना हो जाए। इसी तरह हमारे खून में ग्लूकोज की मिकदार 1 ग्राम पर लीटर से तजावुज़ नहीं करती, हत्ता कि खाने के फ़ौरन बाद भी नहीं। Let's talk about processes of homeostasis. There are 3 processes of homeostasis, that is osmoregulation. It is maintenance of amounts of water and salts in body fluids, for example blood and tissue fluids. Second is thermoregulation. The maintenance of internal body temperature is called thermoregulation. Excretion, a process of homeostasis. In this process, metabolic wastes are eliminated from body to maintain the internal conditions at equilibrium. Osmoregulation, the maintenance of amounts of water and salts in body fluids, that is blood and tissue fluid. In order to understand osmoregulation, it is necessary to understand the nature and function of body fluids. We have three kinds of body fluids, that is blood, tissue fluid and lymph. You have studied in detail about blood in 9th class. Now let's try to understand what tissue fluid is. Let's explore this picture. We all are aware that blood flows with greater pressure in arteries. When from arteries blood enters in capillaries, it exerts more pressure, called hydrostatic pressure. This pressure forces tissue fluid out of the blood plasma into the interstitial spaces of tissues. You can see all blue droplets represent tissue fluid, and you can see how all cells of the tissues are surrounded by tissue fluid. Tissue fluid does not contain blood cells and proteins. Old tissue fluid is continuously replaced with new by the help of lymph vessels. Lymph vessels drain tissue fluid. When tissue fluid enters in lymph vessel, it is called lymph. Lymph vessel carry tissue fluid to main bloodstream. In this way, it again becomes the part of blood. So, we can say that tissue fluid is an extracellular fluid which bathes the cells of most tissues, arriving via blood capillaries and being removed via lymphatic vessels. The role of tissue fluid is to transport nutrients from the blood to the cells and to carry carbon dioxide and other wastes back to the blood. In this picture, you can see transport of materials between blood and cell is through tissue fluid. Blood dump oxygen and nutrients in tissue fluid. From tissue fluid, they diffuse into cells. Similarly, cells dump their metabolic wastes into tissue fluid, and from tissue fluid, they diffuse into blood. So tissue fluid can be regarded as means of exchange of materials between blood and cells. While defining osmoregulation, we encounter two questions. How is the amount of salts and water in body fluids is controlled? Why is it important to maintain the balance of salts and water in body fluids? Or in simple words, why osmoregulation is important? Let's try to address these questions. First question that arises is, how is the amount of salts and water in body fluids is controlled? Answer is, relative amounts of water and salts in body fluids and inside cells is controlled by the processes of diffusion and osmosis, which are essential for the functioning of cells. In previous slide, we discussed that exchange of materials between blood and tissue cells is not direct. It is through tissue fluid. Now, let me tell you, this exchange of materials takes place by the processes of diffusion and osmosis. Our next target is to understand the processes of diffusion and osmosis. Let's observe this picture. By this picture, you can compare the processes of diffusion and osmosis. By definition, you know diffusion is the process in which solute molecules move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. While osmosis is the movement of solvent molecules from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Now, let me enlist some basic differences between these two processes. First basic difference is that osmosis involves a semi-permeable membrane and diffusion does not. Secondly, in diffusion, both solute molecules and solvent molecules, they move. While in osmosis, it involves only the movement of solvent molecules. And in living organisms, this solvent is mostly water. So we can also say that osmosis is a term that is strictly used for water molecules, for the movement of water molecules across a semi-permeable membrane from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration. In order to understand osmoregulation, we need to have a strong background of the process of osmosis. Osmosis is defined as movement of water molecules from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. It can also be defined in some other way, that is, movement of water molecules from an area of higher water potential to an area of lower water potential through a semi-permeable membrane. Now let's find out the relation between solute concentration and water potential. Let's try to understand what water potential is. Water potential is the availability of free water molecules. A solution having more free water molecules have greater water potential as compared to the solution having less free water molecules. By free water molecules, we mean water molecules that are free to move. To understand the behavior of water molecules during osmosis, let's have a look on polar structure of water molecules. Water molecule is a bipolar molecule as it has two poles. Oxygen atom forms the negative pole and hydrogen atoms forms the positive pole. When solute like NaCl is dissolved in water, it forms sodium and chloride ions, and water molecules tend to surround these charges. You can see in this picture. Now you can see the positive ion, that is sodium positive ion, is surrounded by the negative pole of water molecule, and the negative chloride ion is being surrounded by the positive pole of water molecule. While surrounding the charges, water molecules are no more free to move. They are now bounded by solute particles. So we can conclude when solute is added in water, its water potential decreases. This picture would make you more clear. In first beaker, as solute particles are not yet dissolved, water molecules are free to move. But when solute starts dissolving, water molecules gradually become bounded to solute particles and are no more free. Water in the last beaker has lowest water potential, as all water molecules are bounded and cannot move freely. So by this discussion, we can conclude that less solute particle means higher water potential, and more solute particles mean lower water potential. Let's compare the water potential of distilled water with mineral water. Distilled water is pure water, means having only water molecules, while mineral water have variety of mineral salts dissolved in it. So which water would have more water potential? Of course, the distilled water, as all water molecules are free to move, while in mineral water, most of water molecules are busy in surrounding the ions and are not available to move freely. Now you very well understand that low dissolved solute means high water potential and high dissolved solute means low water potential. Let's again concentrate on the definitions of osmosis. This is the definition of osmosis that is written in your 9th class textbook. Movement of water molecules from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmosis. I told you that osmosis can be defined in some other way, that is, movement of water molecules from an area of high water potential to an area of low water potential through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmosis. Now, I can combine both these definitions into this third one. Movement of water molecules from an area of low solute concentration means high water potential to an area of high solute concentration means low water potential through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmosis. इस सारी बहस में मैंने आपको सॉल्यूट कंसंट्रेशन और वाटर पोटेंशियल के दरमियान ताल्लुक़ को समझाने की कोशिश की। ऑस्मोसिस की तारीफ़ पर गौर करें। पानी क्यों हमेशा कम सॉल्यूट वाले इलाके से ज़्यादा सॉल्यूट वाले इलाके की तरफ मूव करता है? क्योंकि कम सॉल्यूट वाले इलाके में फ्री वाटर मॉलिक्यूल्स की तादाद ज़्यादा होती है और वो किसी भी डायरेक्शन में मूव कर सकते हैं, जबकि ज़्यादा सॉल्यूट वाले इलाके में पानी के ज़्यादातर मॉलिक्यूल्स सॉल्यूट पार्टिकल्स के साथ बाउंड होते हैं एंड दे कैन नॉट मूव फ्रीली. Now question is, why is it important to maintain the balance of salts and water in body fluids? Or in simple words, why osmoregulation is important? We can answer this question by understanding how solutions of different tonicities affect animal cells. On the basis of tonicity, there are three types of solutions: hypertonic solution, hypotonic solution, and isotonic solution. By definition, a solution that has more solute concentration as compared to cell cytoplasm is hypertonic solution. Now, what happens when an animal cell is placed in hypertonic solution? As external environment of cell has less water potential as compared to cell cytoplasm, water would move out from cell. Cell will become shrink and plasmolized. Hypotonic solution can be defined as a solution that has less solute concentration as compared to cell cytoplasm. When animal cell is placed in hypotonic solution, the water potential is higher outside as compared to internal environment of cells. So water would tend to move inside of the cells and ultimately would result in bursting of animal cells. Isotonic solutions are those solutions that has less solute concentration as compared to cell cytoplasm. In isotonic solution, solute concentration is equal in the solution and in the cytoplasm of the cell, means equal water potential. So there would be no net movement of water molecules. It means for the survival of animal cell, it is necessary that they should have a nearly isotonic external environment. This picture will explain you that osmoregulation is necessary for the well-being of cells of tissues. It's osmoregulation that keeps external environment of cells nearly isotonic. If tissue fluid around cells becomes hypertonic, it will cause the cells to be shrink or plasmolized. And if it becomes hypotonic, more water would enter the cells, causing bursting of animal cells. In broader sense, osmoregulation is necessary for the survival of the organism. In processes of homeostasis, we have discussed osmoregulation, and now we have to discuss thermoregulation. Thermoregulation is the maintenance of internal body temperature despite any change in the temperature of the external environment. The physiological set point of temperature in human body is 37 degrees centigrade. When this set point is disturbed, our body uses thermoregulation strategies to bring our temperature to its set point again. I will try to make you understand by comparing these flow charts. When body temperature exceeds 37 degrees centigrade, homeostasis is disturbed. Sensors like nerve cells with endings in skin and brain, they are also called as receptors, detect this change and send information to the temperature regulatory center in brain, that is also called as control center. Control center interpret this information and send orders to the effectors, that are the sweat glands throughout the body. Evaporation of water from skin, that is sweating, causes cooling and heat dissipates from body. But by this strategy of thermoregulation, the temperature set point, that is 37 degrees centigrade, is achieved again. So thermoregulation is important because all enzymes working in human body work at their best at 37 degrees centigrade. Any change in temperature can disrupt their structure and function. In processes of homeostasis, we have discussed osmoregulation and thermoregulation. Now we are going to discuss excretion. Let me clear you, egestion, that is getting rid of undigested food, is not excretion because undigested food is not a metabolic product. Excretion involves the removal of metabolic wastes only. Excretion is a cyclic homeostatic process. When waste materials are formed as a result of life processes and dumped into blood, homeostasis is disturbed. Kidneys are major excretory organs. They balance homeostasis by expulsion of waste materials, by regulating water balance, by regulating balance of salts, and regulating pH. Skin also plays a role in excretion. By all these strategies, homeostasis is maintained, and this cycle starts again. Let's try to summarize this huge term homeostasis in few lines. Homeostasis is a great balancing act that keeps body's internal environment at equilibrium even with continuously changing external environment. Physiological set points, for example, body temperature and amounts of salt and water are maintained and regulated by homeostatic processes like osmoregulation, thermoregulation and excretion, both in plants and in animals. We'll discuss homeostasis in plants and animals separately in detail. For queries, do comment in comment box. Thank you.